Hi and welcome to Indigo Starfire. My name is Bevin, and in this video I'm going to be looking into the question, what are their hopes and fears about this connection? There are three groups to choose from. Group 1 is the Black Tourmaline, along with the Lion card. Group 2 is the African Jade, along with the Stingray card. And group 3 is the Petrified Wood, along with the Elephant card. So if you want to take a moment to center, focus on your breathing, and fill whichever group, maybe multiple groups or perhaps all of the groups that you're most drawn to. I'll give you a minute to make your selection and then we'll get right into it. And there are timestamps in the description box of the video for each group if you would like to jump ahead. And up next is a close-up photo of the cards and the crystals to help you better make your selection. Hi, Group 1. You chose the Black Tourmaline, along with the Lion card. So I'm going to start by channeling some of the energies of the card and the crystal, and then I'll get into some tarot oracle cards and higher self messages. This crystal, Black Tourmaline, this is a crystal that is used for grounding and protection. So there can be a little bit of fearfulness on this person's part, kind of like a self-protective mode, some sort of shell that they are in, maybe kind of like a closed off energy as far as love in general, partnership in general. The nature and intensity of their feelings for you are making them kind of like fearful of coming out of that shell, fearful of expressing that, of expressing vulnerability in a certain manner, to where there's a desire to almost give, with that theme of grounding down, wanting to take some sort of action towards you, whether this is an expression to a greater or lesser degree of the nature of these feelings, or desire to evolve the connection further, to solidify and stabilize what the two of you have built with each other up to this point in time into some mutual understanding. So there's a hopefulness with kind of like, can we make this situation more solid, more substantial? This can represent like an actual commitment with one another. Maybe you've just been casually dating, or even two of you are friends and they have deeper feelings for you than they've let on. It's a desire to create something more out of this situation, but a fear of kind of coming out of that shell, coming out of that vulnerable state, or stepping into that vulnerable state rather. So a bit of a paradox there, a desire for something more substantial and a fear of kind of evolving beyond the status quo between the two of you, or just sort of kind of a status quo state within themselves of being a little bit shut down to love, romance, and partnerships. If this is someone from the past that you were dealing with, a no contact situation, then this can talk about the hopes that the two of you can clear the air between the two of you, create some sort of a fresh slate, a fresh start, and that any kind of like seeds of potential which lay dormant between the two of you have the ability to be revived so that the connection can progress forward in a new direction, or just kind of like pick up where you've left off. And yet there's a fear of almost kind of being haunted by the past to a certain degree, a fear of sort of building something and only having it fall apart again. Maybe a fear of sort of, are they ready for this? Are they ready to make a move towards you? Something that they've been holding on to for quite some time in terms of this desire to reconnect, but then taking that first step, that key and crucial step in the direction of, let's break up this stagnant energy between the two of us and really start to build in another direction. There's a hesitation. Are they ready for that? Am I ready for that? Is this something, is it too little too late? Is the seed of potential still viable between the two of us? Kind of like a fear of rejection, or ending up even more out in the cold than they feel that they are at this particular point in time. it ties in with this energy of lion here, this courage and kind of this this silent knowing of sort of who they are, this empowered energy that they are very hopeful that the changes that they have made, if this is a no contact situation, ways in which they've been working on themselves, working to overcome some sort of patterns within themselves or build something in their life, there's a hope that kind of their energies or you'll be able to see the action beyond the words, that sort of that more of that confidence, more of that determination to really do what it takes to prove the genuine nature, the sincerity of their desire to approach you. There's a hope that you'll be able to kind of like see beyond whatever has occurred in the past, see beyond any fears on your part or any kind of like emotional wreckage that has been left in the wake of whatever puts you both in a no contact situation, and that you'll be able to see that they've stepped into a better version of themselves. There's also a fear of kind of a bit of internal lack. Like, do I have what it takes, to really match up with very consistently and to maintain this kind of composure or this empowered, this confident energy? Almost somebody whose ego feels to be very fragile, that they have made progress in a certain extent, but it may be relatively new, or even if these are changes or things that have happened that have been rooted in place for quite some time, it's almost like when it comes to you, when it comes to the idea of sort of facing this element of their past, this yearning and desire for something else, for something more, that they kind of turn all mushy inside, and that confidence really does wane, it really does dwindle very quickly and substantially. So there's a fear of kind of like, they'll build up this momentum, but that when it comes to that point of delivery, that the words won't come out right. Sort of like a faltering between a very direct approach or kind of circumventing a lot of that and just kind of letting you take the lead. They're very fearful of kind of what to expect, what they'll receive, and if you're going to like what you see. If this is a new person that you're dealing with, like a friend that's got deeper feelings for you, somebody that you've been dating that wants to make some sort of like a solid commitment, somebody that wants to ask you out for the first time, like secret admirer kind of energy, again, it's kind of this hopefulness that you will see them as a viable candidate, that you will see the best of them. So a lot of pressure that they're putting on themselves, kind of holding back a little until they feel energetically, maybe even some things they're doing physically to try and optimize their appearance in some sort of way, kind of like a makeover internally and externally, wanting to get things just right when they make that approach, when they make that speech. Make sure that all of the scene is set. If this is someone who's wanting to solidify the connection with you, it feels that for a lot of you, this would almost be someone who, kind of plans a romantic date. They want to choreograph this rather than just very spontaneously kind of like opening up to that line of discussion, that it's something that there's been a lot of thought put into this. They're working up that courage, working up that kind of momentum to have some breakthrough energy here. But then there's also this fear of, am I ready for this? Am I ready for this next level of commitment? Our compatibility, the foundation that we've laid together up to this point in time, is this sufficient to kind of take things to the next level? Do we still need more time to kind of feel things out between the two of us, to get to know each other a little bit better? All of these different thoughts that are kind of like circulating through their mind right now, as far as actively making some kind of move towards you, but at the same time they could be going a lot quicker than they are. It's kind of like sauntering in your direction because they're held up, and it feels like all these kind of like worst case scenarios, wanting to make sure that no stone is left unturned in terms of these preparations. A bit of kind of like some control issues as far as whatever this expression is, whether this is coming back in from the past or somebody you're currently dealing with, taking things to the next level. They're not necessarily leaning into a very organic energy, but again, trying to really sort of fix their gaze on an outcome. Almost the idea with sort of like the lion of stalking its prey and then kind of making that move, making that sort of leap toward what they are desiring at just the right moment. So this is somebody who's putting a lot of thought, maybe a lot of overthinking, kind of like shadowy Knight of Pentacles energy right here. We're trying to kind of over-perfect the scene and the situation is leading to a little bit of delays, but it does feel to be someone that they are very hopeful that the two of you can progress beyond whatever the current definition and dynamic is between the two of you. So I'm going to get a little bit deeper into this with some tarot and oracle cards. So what are their hopes and fears about the connection? Okay, so we have the Page of Cups, which is water energy, Pisces, Cancer, and Scorpio. The Six of Pentacles, which is earth energy, Capricorn, Taurus, and Virgo. Three of Swords, which is air energy, Aquarius, Gemini, and Libra. The Devil, which is Capricorn. Co-create. And enchanting gifts. So there's that element of fear with the Devil here, a little bit of obsessive energy, that shadowy Knight of Pentacles, overly planning, overly thinking, you know, if it's someone from the past, of kind of like the heartbreak, the ways in which they were very careless with the opportunity that they had previously, you know, to be part of your inner circle, a cup of love that you had offered to them that maybe they had rejected or had taken for granted. This enchanting gifts is giving me the impression of almost like a player kind of energy, somebody who is very non-committal, wanting to, you know, keep their options open. Almost looking in the wrong direction and overlooking as a consequence the gift or the opportunity of what was presented to them through this situation. So absence has definitely put some perspective on this. It's almost like they've missed you more than they thought they would or that was possible. And so there's a desire, an obsession almost with kind of course correcting or seeing if now armed with this awareness, this kind of like elevated sort of feeling about you or a sense of kind of what this connection had the ability to develop into or what it was in the past, like to see is there still the ability for us to co-create a different future with one another, wanting to like go out on a limb, reaching out to you. There's a fear here as far as your reaction. You know, are you going to be very kind of aggressive with them? You know, is it based on the nature, and it'll be different for everyone's story of kind of like what happened, what led to this, you know, sort of like no contact separation, especially if there's, you know, this element of like a player energy. They may justifiably so be a little bit nervous about approaching, and understanding on their part that they need to maybe move about this very delicately, not wanting to come forth too quickly and to give you that same vibe of somebody who's just like an in and out energy, somebody who's coming in for very kind of like lower minded intentions, but they're wanting to really prove to you that there is a deep interest in reinvesting and rebuilding slowly, repairing the situation, giving you the credit that you were due, or the you know, letting you know kind of the importance that you hold to them that may have only really been recognized in hindsight. So there's a hopefulness that you'll hear them out, that you'll give them this opportunity to explain themselves, that some kind of dialogue, there's this not like a monologue energy. They don't just want to present their side of things and have that be the end of it, but there's a hope here that the two of you can kind of exchange with one another. You know, with this little wire here, it's almost somebody who may reach out over like text message, email, direct message, possibly a phone call, but it feels like something where, you know, there's a barrier between the two of you that they're wanting to keep, at least initially, to where it's just very direct communication, but then it can be shut off as quickly as it's instigated, just depending on kind of how you receive them. It may be quite a surprise, them popping back up into your reality. So there's a hope that they will they'll catch you on the right day, that they'll be faced with kind of this gentle, playful kitten rather than kind of like the fierce lioness or lion when they are approaching. That's definitely kind of a fear here, not wanting to play any cat and mouse games with you, and a fear that you may just automatically assume that based on what has happened in the past, that the heartbreak is still too deep. There's a fear that it may be too little too late, and so it's almost like they're taking baby steps in your direction. This little owl does speak to somebody who has done some degree of work. Maybe this, it'll be different for everyone. There's kind of this range here. There's a spectrum. For some people, it's just going to be, this kind of like seeds of potential. There's, they're a work in progress still. So it may just be sort of like a check-in. You may be the one that says, hey, the bar has been raised. Come back when you have more to prove, that this is kind of like, it's a good start. This sounds very enticing, but I need some more evidence before I'm willing to kind of open my heart again. For others of you, this is somebody who has done a lot of work. They've done a lot of work in terms of the internal landscape, things in their material reality. Addictions is coming through with the devil here, and so that can be codependence or like toxic one-sided connections, player energy, or even kind of like different substances, or just whatever that sort of applies to in this particular situation. That for some people, they've really gotten a handle on that. They have some traction, they have some mileage between kind of that point of breaking a habit and some healthier things that have been incorporated. And so they're wanting to provide this sort of proof that it's not just empty words and promises, but that there's some action behind that, or there's a willingness to kind of like take it slow, do what it takes in order to earn that trust with you and sort of move things forward. If this is somebody you're currently dealing with that is wanting to express feelings, maybe even like secret admire, wanting to approach you for the first time, or somebody that you're dating wanting to sort of solidify the connection or take things to the next level. There's again this idea of like wanting to catch you on the right day, wanting to make sure that the situation or this sort of declaration or this conversation unfolds when you're both feeling very comfortable, very happy. So there may be something where the nature, even just energetically of what they are presenting to you, it starts to lighten. This may be somebody that's trying to bring a lot of kind of like joy and laughter into the situation in the hopes that, they can catch you by surprise, wanting it to be a pleasant surprise, but at the same time, they're a little bit fearful as kind of like maybe they see you as very intuitive, for example, and they're not wanting to set off any alarm bells for you, that there's any kind of sneakiness, any sort of duplicity where your guard will go up. So there's a hopefulness that they can make this happen very naturally, but in a controlled sense, and not in a way that it is so planned for like an extended period of time that it alters your perception of them, where you kind of get the sense of there's something else going on behind the scenes, and not wanting your mind to kind of like jump to the worst case scenario or the worst possible thing that it could be. This is somebody who is very fearful that maybe this change or all of this kind of like a tension within themselves, even of this big conversation that they want to have. They're not wanting you to perceive that as that they are getting ready to pull the rug out from under you or break up with you, but that they're actually wanting to develop the situation further. So it's kind of this balance between how much they are able to sort of just be in their natural energy, just be in the flow with you while you're dealing with one another presently, and then to also start to incorporate more along the lines of let's open the door to this bigger kind of conversation, this bigger confession. There's a sense here with this heartbreak of sort of, this may have been somebody that has been very meticulous in how they have been developing this situation, a little bit closed off, guarded, or reserved in terms of their emotions. They may be able to sense some sort of frustration for you, or it's just been something where maybe you're feeling friend zoned for a very long period of time, or you've been dating for a while and there's been no elevation or evolution or movement forward in this situation. So there's a fear that you're almost losing interest, or that in some way there's a fear of that you're going to perceive them in this kind of like effort towards you as just an attempt to kind of remain relevant in your life. They're wanting to make sure that you see them for who they are, and that this is a very the time that it has taken to kind of come to this place, that it's been necessary for them on many different levels. Maybe they're working beyond some kind of fear, or again, kind of cracking out of some sort of shell around their emotional body, around their heart space. This may be somebody who it's been a while since they've been in a long-term connection and a solid connection. They're just kind of putting themselves back out there for the first time in a while, or even sort of this intense magnetic connection that they feel for you. It intimidates them. If your connection can feel this intense at this point in time, what's that going to be like when the two of you move closer to one another? There's a bit of hesitation, it feels like, and also some fear within, maybe based on the intensity and nature of these feelings that they have for you, how quickly these things came on, and kind of an effort within to sort of put on the brakes within themselves to take the time to really lay some kind of a foundation between the two of you, do things different than they normally do, or just what they have kind of come to believe is sort of the right way, establishing that friendship first, or just an extended period of time of dating before really taking things to that level of solid and stable commitment with one another. There's still a fear of, rejection here. They're not sure if you're on the same page with this, if you both have the same long-term goals, how committed you are. So for a lot of you, this is where you haven't even had this line of discussion with this person, either because they've never expressed feelings or just hasn't reached that place in your interactions with one another. And so that fear of rejection, that's something, a hurdle that they're needing to move past. And at the same time, there's also this fear here about the nature and intensity of what they're feeling, and sort of like, is this just raw chemistry, or do we really have what it takes to be compatible with one another in a long-term solid sense? Or is this just, whatever we have built with one another, if we take it to the next level, is this going to break everything apart? So a lot that they're really contemplating and considering at this point in time. But overall, this feels like somebody who, despite any fears, whether this is past person or current person that you're dealing with, the fact that we have the lion here, this is that solar plexus chakra is really charging within them. It's the elevation beyond root chakra into action, into the action center, into that courage center, into that, very kind of like driven part of themselves, where this is like leaps of faith. They've been on the fence about this situation long enough. It may be baby steps that they're taking towards you, but this is definitely somebody who wants to kind of take things to the next level, re-emerge, or to allow you to see a part of themselves that you may not have been privy to. So if this is like a person you're dealing with sort of a shell around their heart, very guarded emotionally, they're wanting to come out of that energy of restriction, show you a lighter side of them, show you a tenderness, a romantic part of them that may not easily be revealed to people, that they're very self-protective about, maybe even very self-conscious about. And yet, whatever the exchange between the two of you has been up to this point in time, and a lot that they've been thinking about, kind of in outside of your dealings with one another very directly, they're leaning into this energy of wanting to open their heart and to allow you in closer, to allow you to see a part of them that they're feeling that this connection's ready for it, you're ready for it, they're ready for it. So I'm going to get some higher self messages, and with this deck right here, there are sort of lighter messages and shadowy messages. So I wanted to get a little bit of both to touch on that element of both the hopes and the fears. So start with the hopes first. What are their hopes? Sort of some higher self messages that are kind of the lighter side of this situation. Okay, and they say, I am trying to be someone you can trust. So this really confirms that idea of building a strong foundation. It feels like either energetically they're aware of this, that you may have trust issues, if you've discussed previous connections, heartbreaks that the two of you have had. This is something they're very mindful of, wanting to present a different face of love than you have known up to this point in time. Also, if this is somebody from the past that you were dealing with where trust was broken, hearts were broken very mutually, or you kind of bore the brunt of all of that, this is really talking about kind of these diligent steps towards you, these baby steps towards you, with an understanding of coming back around, but very gradually trying to open the door to creating some sort of a fresh start or a new foundation in your situation. They also say, I do love you. I just don't know how to show you right now. So confirmation there of that idea of like a shell around their heart. Somebody who has big feelings for you, intense feelings for you, an intense desire to take things to the next level or to show you a side of themselves that is not often revealed in general and may not have ever been revealed, or you may have just gotten glimpses of it in this situation with them, whether it's this current person or even person from the past. That there's a desire to give you more of them, to be more consistent with you, to let you in where they may have pushed you away or put up boundaries, or kind of run in fear from this connection. And they're still in this process of kind of like formulating, sort of temperature checking the situation, maybe energetically, or dropping little hints and clues. It feels like also something that even that is kind of a fine line with them. They're not wanting to come across as like breadcrumbing you, for example, but they're just trying to test the waters and see how receptive are you. If this is somebody that you're dealing with, like how receptive are you to us maybe exploring other facets of what our connection could be with one another. If this is someone from, your past, if you have people in common that they may even be kind of like asking about you, or maybe posting things online on social media in the hopes that you'll kind of pick up on that and sort of like tapping into the energy to see kind of like, is this person receptive to me? They may be sort of doing a little snooping, a little spy work to sort of, check up on you on social media, asking around, but kind of an undercover way, not wanting to come fully out of the shadows at this point in time, but trying to just almost gauge the situation and see, is it possible for me to return? Is it time for me to return? Just sort of wanting to see and sort of sniff out kind of what's going on in your life before they just pop out from hiding or from, a period of disconnect. They also say, don't forget about me. I haven't forgotten about you. So that is that energy right there of somebody from your past. This is not an out of sight, out of mind situation. They definitely still have feelings for you with this Page of Cups. They are wanting to explore if there is still the potential to build in another direction, if this connection is still viable despite everything that has happened. This also ties into the idea of that they haven't forgotten kind of how they may have taken you for granted, or what has occurred in the past between the two of you. And so they're very mindful of that in terms of making sure that whatever that difficulty or dissonance was in the past, that this has in some way been sort of tempered within themselves, wanting to make sure that if they were in player energy in the past, that they're approaching you in more of a mature energy this time around. And they also say, I still love you and I can't stop thinking about you. So another confirmation there of that energy of you are not out of sight and out of mind. You still occupy a place within this person's heart. And if this is somebody that you are dealing with currently, a friend situation or somebody that you're dating, it's almost the feelings are growing. It's love is blossoming within them, and they can't take their eyes and their attention off of that. As much as they may have tried to kind of distract themselves from that, or again, this kind of like slow and deliberate kind of Knight of Pentacles energy, the pace is really picking up, the intensity and kind of this obsession energy, this kind of heavy desire that they have for you, this just keeps building in momentum. So it's almost like as much as they're trying to put the brakes on, they're being pulled in your direction towards some action to know one way or another what's possible between the two of us. Can we grow and develop from here? Are these feelings reciprocal? Do you want to explore this? What can come out of this situation? So I'm going to get a couple of these messages on the shadowy side of things, just to get sort of an indicator of a little more details about the fears that they may be dealing with that can help to explain any sort of delays up to this point in time, or give you some sort of perspective of kind of the challenges and the obstacles they are needing to push past or kind of wrestling with within themselves in order to kind of take that leap of faith towards some sort of movement or action, or enacting some kind of plan that they are developing as far as reemerging in your life, or opening the doors to taking things to the next level with you. Okay, and we have our connection is complicated. There are issues out of our control. So kind of a mirroring of that idea of control issues and feeling very out of control. It's supposed to be somebody that is trying to be too methodical in this situation. They're not yet at the point of relaxing into this place of allowing. That feels to be that final step, that leap of faith where they've, tended to all the details. They've tried to make it as perfect as possible, but then there's this element of the unexpected, which makes them feel very uncomfortable, maybe due to residue from other heartbreaks or just the importance and the intensity that they are sensing and experiencing and placing on the idea of reconciliation, or, making that delivery to let's open the door and explore what else might happen between us in this situation. That they're wanting to do this right, and yet there are all these kind of like unpredictable variables. It feels like somebody who on more than one occasion is almost had that conversation with you, or is almost reemerged, and then they sort of stop themselves at the last minute, kind of the fear getting the best of them. And it's complicated, sort of this draw towards you, and yet the sense of wanting to over perfect things, kind of the battle between sort of the head and the heart, the material and the emotional parts of themselves, the intensity and the nature of what they feel for you. Kind of this intense passion, and yet also something on like the soul and the heart level that is just pulling them in your direction. So they're still struggling to sort of understand that, find and kind of like overcome these barriers within themselves that are causing them to doubt kind of where you are at with one another, either what they've done in sort of the aftermath of the two of you moving into separation, and just having the confidence that, whatever stage of preparation that they're in, that at least it's changed from where they were before, and that it's worth the effort to at least knock on that door and see, can we move forward in this situation? Or if it's somebody that you're currently dealing with, trusting in kind of the foundation that you've laid with one another up to this point in time, or that even the risk of rejection is worth the possibility of reward, that you feel the same way and are interested in developing something more with them. They also say, I don't want to let you go. I miss being with you. So there's that kind of obsessive energy right here. They can't stop thinking about this. They may be kind of tugging on your energy, pulling on your energy. There's a desire to come in from out in the cold, back into your life. That kind of like 5 of Pentacles to the 6 of Pentacles energy right here. But there's a fearfulness. Are you going to just slam the door in their face? Are you going to hear them out? They want closeness with you. They want to resume that. They want to make up for lost time. If this is somebody that you're currently dealing with, they value kind of the layer that you have with one another at this point, either the rapport that you've built with one another if you're dating, that they're not wanting to push things too quickly into an intense bond or something more solidified, if that's something that they're not sure you're ready for yet, or even this level of uncertainty within that it kind of sounds like a good idea, but in practicality, are they really ready to link their life up with another person in that way? Or if this is somebody like a friend with deeper feelings, there's a fear that if they express these things and you don't feel the same way, is this going to undermine your friendship? Are they going to lose you out of their life completely? And so somebody who's kind of holding on to that anchor point of the foundation that the two of you have built with one another, and kind of gauging their action comparable to sort of like, what am I willing to give, because it's not worth the risk of losing what we have with one another at this point. So I'm going to get some guidance for you, and then I'll get some initials. And we've got wisdom. The angel of wisdom is granting you insight from the higher realms. So this ties into this idea of this little owl here on the co-create card. It's an archetype for wisdom. And so really, if this is somebody who is approaching from the past, then, the best guidance is to trust in your discernment, be willing to kind of hear them out, to enter into the situation with a beginner's mind, but never forget what you've experienced with them in the past. You really are best served if you're entertaining the idea of reconciliation with trusting more in actions as the best form of apology rather than just words or promises of change. Kind of like, what can this person demonstrate? That's almost the wise approach. Sensing into sort of what were the patterns before, what was the heartbreak before, what is being sort of shown that can instill trust and confidence that we're not going to go down that road with one another again. If this is a new connection and, somebody who's getting ready to express feelings for the first time or have that big conversation about let's take things further, trusting in the idea of wherever they are holding back or they're a little bit hesitant, rather than internalizing or personalizing that, or even feeling that something is kind of like fishy in the situation, or that they may have something up their sleeve, or they're trying to be sneaky, kind of taking that higher approach to that this may be very difficult for this person to take that leap of faith towards you, that there's a lot of importance that they're placing on this, that maybe that sense of shyness or kind of that wobbly energy, it's because this is a very important connection. The energies, the bond between the two of you, it is of great importance to them. And so something where you kind of allow the situation to build very organically, that initial delivery, that first conversation, as much as they may try to plan that out, in the moment, the spontaneous energy of it in real time, it may not play out exactly as they had anticipated. And so really being willing to kind of move into this renegotiation of your dynamic with one another slowly and in a way that both of your fears and your emotions can be kind of addressed and sussed out between the two of you, that it may take time to like find that balance where you're comfortable kind of with where you are up to this point, the foundation that you've built, and what you're both looking for moving forward. So I'm going to get some initials now, and this can be a first, middle, or last name of you or this person, or it could spell something out, just whatever resonates for you. Okay, so we've got B, T, Y, M, I, X, L, M, Y, K, W, P, S, B, and P. So those are your messages. I hope that they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, or share. If you'd like a personal reading, I offer them through my Etsy shop, and there's a link in the description box of the video for that. I offer a variety of pre-recorded video readings, written readings, and channeled letters. Turnaround time on everything is 5 to 7 days from the time of purchase. I also sell handmade jewelry, dream catchers, and sun catchers if you're interested in checking any of those out as well. And I've launched a second channel here on YouTube, which is called Lady of the Dawn Tarot, and there's a link to that in the description box of the video, as well as in the channel section of my page. The format over there consists of readings related to topics other than love and romance, so if that sounds interesting to you and you're interested in watching readings outside of matters of the heart, that would be the place to find them. So I thank you for your support there, as well as for your continued support here on this channel. I hope to see you again in another reading. Please take care and be well. Hi, Group 2. You chose the African Jade, along with the Stingray card. So real quick, to channel the energies initially from the crystal and the card in terms of this person's hopes and fears related to the connection. These are definitely emotional energies. The green and the stone relating to heart chakra, and stingray being, an ocean animal. And so this idea of, the saltiness of the sea and kind of these very deep emotions, a lot of tears that have been cried. If this is somebody that you are in no contact with, it feels like there's been a lot of sleepless nights. There's a fear that it may be too little too late if they were to try to extend some sort of olive branch towards you. A feeling of regret, missing what they had now that it is gone, a sense of almost a deep empathic connection between the two of you, where they have almost energetically felt the reverberation or even the karmic consequences of the pain that they have caused you, the tears that you have had to cry on account of them. It's almost like now it's their turn. And it's been something that's been almost, it feels like a humbling experience for them. It has really grounded them down to basics in a lot of ways, maybe tower moments that have happened, or just something where this watershed of emotions, perhaps even like heart chakra activation energy, that may have really led to this no contact between the two of you, the intensity of these feelings, and trying to stuff these down or suppress them or kind of fight them off in a certain way, that this is not work to their advantage. And it's something to where the heaviness of all of this, the pressure of all of this, a pressure to, try and make things right or course correct, that their higher self or even signs that they are getting is kind of like pushing and pressing them to do. But there's an energy here of being very fearful that they don't have what it takes, that they will almost only hurt you more if they were to reemerge, or kind of like make matters worse. Maybe it's been a long time since you dealt with one another, and a sense of knowing that you've repaired your heart as best as you can. You've needed to put up some kind of armor. You may be very defensive towards them, and very closed off and unwilling to hear what they have to say. You've had to heal alone in the dark, with maybe not a lot of people to talk to about what you've experienced with this individual, especially as far as like heart chakra activations and ascension and, spiritual activations, all that sort of energy, that it feels very multi-layered, this situation, to where now they are experiencing that. They may be in kind of a dark night of the soul, and it's a struggle to pull themselves out of that, to move toward you, toward the light of potentially reconciliation, or even just sort of smoothing over the hurt that has been created in the past. A sense of fear that you won't open your heart to them again, or that it would be nearly impossible to reestablish trust in the situation after what has happened in the past. This is a new connection, and the hopefulness here, because this is some very fearful energies, and the hopefulness is that maybe after some kind of tearful, reconciliation, or a heart energy that is very closed off, African jade is a stone that is symbolic of, kind of making amends with people, and even the term brotherly love is something that is associated, with this particular stone, that there's this hope that at least the two of you can, kind of part ways as friends, that whatever that hurt was that was left in the wake of sort of being torn apart from one another, that you can find it in your heart to forgive them and to at least sort of make amends, some kind of closure between the two of you, or that you'd be willing to even just entertain them as friends, to start from scratch, start from square one. It's a willingness even to kind of be in the friend zone with you for a while, almost a sense of that they want back into your life in some form or fashion, and kind of an understanding on their part that they may need to just accept the role that, you've changed, you've moved on, and maybe all you're willing to allow them is friendship at this point in time, and the very least almost this hope that they can present something that kind of takes the sting out of what has happened, that it's not just a bitter note that you will have left things on with one another, but there's something that they can provide as far as vindication, maybe even letting you know about the hurt that they have experienced in the aftermath of parting ways, so that if it helps you to heal and press forward and open your heart to love again with somebody else in the future, there's a hope that they can at least provide that to you. If this is a new person that you're dealing with, there's a fearful energy here of being hurt in love, a guardedness, a shell around their heart. This may be a very deeply romantic and emotional person who maybe used to wear their heart on their sleeve, but after a series of disappointments here, kind of like this progression of people that took them for granted, or very messy breakups, or ways in which they had led with the heart and had kind of put logic on the back burner and learned the hard way, that not everybody loves in the same way, or kind of respects or is open or is willing to cherish and value those with tender hearts. Almost feels like somebody who has kind of put up some sort of self-protective mechanism around their heart space. And there's a feeling here, there's a hope that you can be the one to help redefine for them what love can be, that you will be somebody who is gentle with their heart, will understand kind of this self-protective energy, this need for defensiveness, maybe a need to take things very slowly, to have and kind of build and just sit in this energy of friendship or whatever your dealings with are with one another up to this point in time, that they need that for an extended period, in order to feel very safe and comfortable with kind of opening up to something more with you, or to kind of rise beyond perhaps even the last romantic situation they were in that was very crushing. It might have propelled them into a dark night of the soul, a lot of tears that they have cried alone and in the darkness, to where they're feeling very fragile, very delicate, that there's a tenderness within them, that they're hopeful you will be patient with them through this process of them unfolding, showing you this very beautiful heart that they hold inside, but that it's gonna take work. It's not a situation that can be rushed, and it almost feels to be something that they're trying to almost send these signals energetically. They're hoping that, you can understand them on an energetic level. They almost see you as like a kindred spirit, or very similar energies. Maybe you have very similar kind of like backstories or love languages. And it feels like something where they don't necessarily have the words or the courage to open up on that level with you just yet. But it's somebody who is hoping that intimacy in other ways, maybe even like the intimacy of friendship or brotherly love that the two of you are establishing with one another, that will be enough to kind of like satiate or satisfy you while they're in the process of kind of like letting their guard down, learning to trust, learning to listen to their own heart, which is beckoning them in the direction of exploring this connection further, of letting you in, of learning to trust and love again, and learning that as many times as they've been kind of like knocked down or disappointed in love, that this is a situation worth exploring, worth trying again, worth giving it one more chance, one more shot, in order to see, can they find the love that sort of matches the tenderness that they hold inside? Can they find the love that they've been looking for? That there's a hopefulness here that the two of you can explore greater depths with one another in terms of romance, in terms of feelings, and a hopefulness that you will be patient with them as they are kind of like struggling to come out of some period of hiding or being very closed off, and self-protective in the heart space. But then a deep and intense fear of getting hurt again, or moving too quickly. Someone who feels like they're very aware of their own nature to kind of like scurry away when triggered in very particular ways as far as emotions are concerned. And so there's a fear of moving too quickly and spooking themselves almost, and kind of like retreating into hiding or undermining what the two of you have built. So it's almost like there's a defense mechanism mainly against themselves and kind of this lower nature within. They're very aware of this fearful part, this wounded part of themselves, and they don't feel ready to yet express that, or able really to put that into words. So they're trying to kind of move very carefully in the hopes that, they find that right balance between giving and kind of allowing for that element within themselves. So I'm going to get a little bit deeper into this in terms of their hopes and fears about this connection with some tarot and oracle cards. Okay, so we have the Nine of Cups, which is water energy, Pisces, Cancer, and Scorpio. The Nine of Pentacles, which is Earth energy, Capricorn, Taurus, and Virgo. The Hanged Man, which is Pisces. Five of Wands, which is fire energy, Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. Peace. And Observer. So this Hanged Man is really tying into the idea of, if this is a person you're dealing with currently, that their hands are almost tied in the sense of some kind of valve around their heart that has kind of closed off, or an awareness of this tendency within them to be maybe, they have like an anxious avoidant attachment style, where when they feel very boxed in, very closed in, or people get a little too close, they're aware of this part of themselves to kind of like pull back, or to restrain or hold back in a certain way. It feels to be somebody also with this Pisces energy is just a very deeply emotional person, and they have learned to kind of contain that in a certain way, because it's led to a lot of disappointment for themselves. They've really on more than one occasion thought they have found wish fulfillment. It feels to be a deeply romantic person, somebody who has really, whether they would admit this openly or not, they've always kind of been searching for that soulmate, for the one. And they had different sort of approaches and methods to this. It's something where they've had to temper this down through time. Someone who's had to pick up the pieces as many times as they've been knocked down. They pick themselves back up again and again. And so it's a hopefulness here that you will be patient with them, and kind of like cognizant of this very sort of like triggered part within, the idea of, they're very fearful of getting hurt in love again. And yet with this romantic capacity, it's almost like they can't stop putting themselves out there. But it may be kind of tedious work as far as a new approach that they are utilizing in this situation with you. This may be kind of this gradual process leading up to the dealings with you, of kind of like learning what works and what doesn't, and sort of like self-correcting over the course of maybe the last few relationships, or times where they caught feelings for somebody, or something really stirred within their heart, that they're trying a different approach, trying to honor that part of themselves. They've observed this about them. And so they're trying to just kind of like hold back, lean into that, not fight that nature within, take things very slowly, very gradually, that there's a lot of untapped potential in this situation. There's a hope that they can, provide you with some kind of like peace and contentment with showing up and being very jovial and very genuine in your dealings with one another, and almost again kind of this communication, like a telepathy from afar, or kind of like this heart energy that they're trying to exchange back and forth, to almost convey that message, maybe even in just sort of like subtle or suggestive ways, that they want more with you one day, but it's something that's a bit kind of like off in the distance, that there's a part of them that wants to just leap forward, wants to just open those floodgates, wants to let you in, but they are at a point in their life, or in their kind of romantic experiences, maybe this is even kind of like big life lesson thing, where they've really had to work on self-discipline, self-restraint. They're this kind of romantic or very trusting nature, this very kind of leading with the heart, overly so. In previous circumstances and situations, it's led to a lot of disappointment for them. And so there's a hope that this different approach that they're taking with you in this situation will yield better results further in the future, that maybe this will be something where any unspoken fears or heartbreaks that you have experienced, that kind of as you acclimate to one another, you become very kind of peaceful and content in the now, that things can blossom and germinate very organically with you at a time when you're both feeling comfortable, that they can kind of like, it's a hope that they can lead by example of, honoring this part of themselves, honoring those personal boundaries within this kind of decision or resolution that they came to prior to even meeting you, of something has to change in my life. I can't keep putting myself through this kind of heartbreak and pain. And so this feels to be something where what you're experiencing at this point in time with this individual is the carrying out, the enactment of a decision to change their life. That is something that they've been working toward. It's been something that's been built up toward for quite some time through a lot of disappointments, a lot of trial and error. And so it's something where they're not exactly comfortable. This isn't somebody who's like playing games. This is a very genuine energy right here. But they're advocating for themselves at this point. They're practicing self-love in a very fearless way of kind of like these fears still exist, or this tendency within to kind of dive too deeply, too quickly exists, which leads to pain over and over again. And so something needs to change. And it's a hope that, you will be patient with them, that kind of your exchanges with one another up to this point in time is enough to keep you interested and engaged. That this kind of period of time of getting to know each other in this way will serve the connection well ultimately in the long term. This is someone who sees long-term potential with you. They're not trying to waste your time or just test themselves and see, can I hold back? Can I restrain myself? It's almost like they're carrying out this plan because they do value and they do see a lot of long-term potential with you. The fear is that they may be kind of in this process of molasses kind of energy and going very slowly here, that seeds of potential may not be viable when they reach that point of comfort. There's a fear of sort of like, if I'm taking the long way home, if I'm taking the long route to what I really want with this person, what I really want to explore, what I really hope happens, by the time we reach a place where I'm comfortable, is this other person still going to be interested? Like, are you still going to be interested? Is that chemistry still going to be there? Or there's an uncertainty of sort of like, with this Five of Wands, it's kind of like conflict. Like, is this the right approach? Because they do feel big energy for you, intense energy, a lot of satisfaction. They feel very empowered, very free to be themselves, very comfortable in your presence. And yet they're not entirely sure and a little bit fearful. Like, is this approach the right method here? Or is this something where caution should just be thrown to the wind and a leap of faith needs to be taken at this point in time? So a fear that they may have to learn the hard way, that kind of this other extreme polarity of sort of being a little more restrained in the heart space, that it might work against them in the long run. If this is someone from the past that you were dealing with, this idea of like watching from afar, this is hindsight energy with this observer here. And it's a hopefulness that they can restore some sort of peace, reconciliation, amicable energy between the two of you, that you can at least part friends, or that some kind of like conflict or chaos that the situation ended on last time around, something that's been frozen in time, something, that has been lingering, as much as, you've moved forward in other ways, you've kind of like collected your own peace of mind, you've created that repair and that vindication for yourself. There is still this hope that they can provide almost that last link to, really kind of mirror to you the sense of knowing that you have, and the reality that whatever their conduct was in the situation in the past, whatever that hurt was that they caused to you, that this was wrong. This was not the right thing to do. It was not a high vibrational thing to do. It could have been motivated by many different factors within this person. Fear of commitment, operating from a lower nature, just any kind of like interference, any other influences. The story's going to be different for everybody, but it's definitely something where they are regretting their actions in the past. And it's something where with these two little eggs here, and the peace and the observer, it's almost like they're trying not to become too attached to a particular outcome. There's a hopefulness that maybe, in time the two of you could revive the connection, that whatever they are perhaps planning to bring forward to you or are feeling is necessary. The Hanged Man can talk about, again, kind of like Dark Night of the Soul energy. They're sort of like crushed at the bottom of some sort of like karmic retribution, or some cycle of like a reckoning that's happening with them. So they don't necessarily feel ready, if it's a past person, either to kind of like take that action step forward yet. This is something that's a little more prolonged in time. And the hope is that when they are freed, when they are in a place of readiness, when they have that plan of action scripted and ready to enact that you will be receptive to them, that you will kind of like look beyond the surface level of the pain that has happened in the past, and that you'll recognize kind of this this very genuine desire that they have within to make peace with you in this situation. And I'm also drawn, and I just noticed this for the first time, interestingly enough, but it's relevant here for this energy on this Nine of Pentacles, this little snail down in the bottom of the card, so moving at a snail's pace towards you. That applies with new or the old energy. It's a sense of wanting to take things slow, feeling very much that this process can't be rushed, whether this is evolving things to the next level, or even kind of like circling back around, you know, in order to provide some sort of peace. There's a fear of moving too quickly and perhaps startling you, you know, kind of being on the receiving end of some sort of vindictive energy on your part, if it was a very messy circumstance under which this person kind of left you, or even with the new person rushing in too quickly, and kind of, you know, a fragile, tender part of themselves being easily crushed over the possibility of rejection, or something where they're not necessarily ready for it yet, and they kind of tuck back into themselves, into that shell very quickly, and sort of undermine what's possible between the two of you. So it's a slow moving energy, but also with the snail shell and that kind of spiral, it's the idea of breaking out of some sort of pattern. There's a sense of wanting to bring something full circle, something to a completion, kind of that 10th cup, that 10th pentacle that loops over then into the possibility of fresh start. So someone from the past who's hopeful that the two of you can make amends with one another, maybe try to rebuild the friendship, or at least, you know, that you'll be willing, a hopefulness, you'll be willing to accept that apology, and then you can both kind of go your separate ways with this weight sort of lifted off of the two of you, something that's been tangled up, even energetically, just sort of frozen in time, that it alleviates the two of you so you can move on to other potentials in your lives, without all the heaviness, all that kind of energetic hook, with this period of distress, this kind of like painful memory of an experience, that it will help provide you with some sort of healing or restoration so you can open to love again with another person if you choose not to reconcile with them. It's a fearfulness as well that when they arrive, it's like too little too late, or again, that they'll be on the receiving end of some sort of like a harsh energy between the two of you, and then they're just kind of left with this weightedness, sort of like looking from afar. There's a fear that this is kind of their fate. This is their karmic retribution for having taken you for granted. You know, especially someone from the past, they see you and appreciate you now from a very different energy. They're seeing you from a very different perspective than they had previously. That perspective has been altered. This is most likely somebody who is watching you from afar. You know, the hanged man can be like fly on the wall energy, and then the little observer, kind of the coyote with the telescope, sort of this trickster energy. So this can be like fake profiles online, you know, just kind of like the sneaky route of gathering information, so that you don't notice them, very cloaked, but also this person is very aware, tapping in energetically, but it feels like in some way they have eyes on you. This is more than just somebody who's in the energy of nostalgia, but they're really in some way recognizing how you've put your broken pieces together, into something very different, that it's almost this fear of sort of, you've evolved, you've broken out of some sort of cycle, you've stepped into a better version of yourself, your life has changed in so many ways, and it's a fear as well of kind of like who they are, what they have to present to you, even if it's just to smooth things over and create some sort of like peace between the two of you, or to provide that vindication. It's a sense of not being sure how to really approach you, not even recognizing you, maybe physically, you know, things having changed in terms of your energy, in terms of your life, your focus, your dreams, your goals, your priorities, all these things being so different from the person that you were in the past, that kind of their tactics or the way in which they related to you previously, it's like those common denominators don't exist anymore. So it's a fear of kind of like, how do we create this common ground? How do we start over again? What is the potential now that so much has changed within you and energetically within your life? So I'm going to get some higher self messages from this person now. And this deck has both kind of like light and shadow energies. So I thought it'd be good to pull like two different segments of messages. So some of kind of the energies related to their hopes for this connection, and then I'll get some messages, some words that kind of tie into that idea of more of the fearful end of the spectrum as far as how they're looking at the situation. So in terms of more of those lighter energies, that hopeful energy, what does this person want you to know? And they say, I hide my true desires for you. So that ties into the idea of someone from the past cloaking themselves, masking themselves, sneaking around, fake profiles, all of that kind of like information and energy and sort of like, the little birds that report back to them, things like that, so that they are able to kind of watch and observe, hiding themselves, not yet ready to show you their face or to reemerge into your world directly, hiding this desire to crack open the seeds of potential or to present some sort of olive branch to you, hiding this desire that they have, because for most of you, this isn't just somebody who wants to come back in and kind of give that apology and in order to let themselves off the hook in a certain manner. There is a hopefulness within them that, if it takes a while, if it's slow progress, that you're able to kind of like let bygones be bygones, reestablish that friendship with one another, that platonic energy, and to in time kind of like gradually open up to the possibility of romance. But it's something that they're seeing this as almost like a long game here. It's not something that can be rushed into. So maybe it's been a long time since you've seen one another, and justifiably so. A lot's changed in both of your lives. You're very different people. To where it's not just picking right up where you left off, but it's a need to almost reacquaint each other with one another. And if this is somebody that's currently in your life and that you're dealing with, there's that confirmation of somebody who's kind of like deliberately closing off these feelings. They're not yet ready to show you fully that deep romantic side of them, that deeply emotional side of them. And it's an energy of that it's not you, it's nothing that you're doing wrong. It's not having to do with like an intensity or too much pressure you're putting on them, but it's as a result of kind of a series of disappointments, some commitment that they made to themselves prior to meeting you, to really change their life, to understand these habits and tendencies, how they've been getting in their own way, instead of just pointing the finger of blame outwardly for their own sort of pain and distress on an emotional level. This is indicating a very mature person who has decided to take matters into their own hands and do something different from this point forward in love and partnership. And so what you're experiencing is kind of the prototype of that, or like the first version of that. It's something that's they're not entirely comfortable. It goes against a deeply ingrained tendency within them to rush in, to kind of put themselves in situations, dive in too quickly, and end up getting hurt, ending up having to kind of like pick the pieces up, take time away, but they've had some sort of perspective. They've made some sort of shift in their life. So as much as what you're experiencing may be a bit closed off or guarded, beneath that sort of veneer or that shell, there's a lot of deep feelings, like ocean depths kind of feelings for you, deeper than you would have imagined that this person has for you based on what they've shown at this point. And they also say, I know what you mean to me. I am ready to be with only you now. So there's that person from the past wanting to come back in. They recognize what they had now that it is gone. And so this can be somebody who's in this process of preparing, kind of allowing a cycle of karma or some kind of low period in their life to sort of play out, so they can work up that courage, work up that strength to make their move back towards you, to show you a side of themselves they hadn't before, show you that respect that they hadn't before, provide that sort of apology or reconciliation energy that's long overdue and owed in this situation. If this is somebody that you're dealing with currently, this is again this idea of they are very aware of the nature of what they feel for you, and it's almost kind of causing them to deliberately sort of like hold themselves back. They're, this hanged man and sort of this illumination on the crown chakra. They're very aware that this is a circumstance that, if they move too quickly or if things don't pan out between the two of you, then this could be a deep heartbreak, a deep sense of loss. There's a lot of value that they're putting on this situation in terms of the long term. They want to do this right. They want to crack open this potential between the two of you when it feels right within themselves, because if they rush too quickly, there is a tendency to kind of like flutter away again at the first sign of danger, to kind of panic. This could be somebody that's habitually in kind of like runner mode within themselves as a result of all these disappointments and heartbreaks. And so they're trying to curb that tendency within by sort of taking things slow, honoring that part of themselves, and exercising a different course of action in this situation than has been the case in previous romances. And they also say, this isn't over between us. I am coming back for you. So confirmation right there, someone from the past wanting to see, are the seeds of potential still viable between us? Can we forgive and forget? Can we learn to love each other again? Will you forgive me? This is somebody who's kind of like watching and waiting for that window of opportunity. And if this is the new person that you're dealing with, it's the idea of if they've kind of pulled into their shell or pulled back energetically from you in a certain way, they may have almost been like flustered or triggered, some kind of urge that they could have had recently to kind of open up, or some level of intimacy, emotional intimacy, conversational intimacy, energetic intimacy, whatever that looks like for you, that really sort of stirred something within. It's almost like they were at the brink of kind of opening those floodgates and confessing these deeper feelings, and then sort of that vow they'd made to themselves of not yet, take things slowly, took over, and they needed to sort of pull back into that shell. But if that's the case, then it's this reassurance that it's nothing that you've done wrong, and to just give them some time and they'll warm back up to you in the situation. And they also say, I do love you, I just don't know how to show you right now. So confirmation again of somebody with deep feelings for you, and a sense of like the time is not right at this point for themselves, or maybe just this kind of fear and hesitation of like, how do you feel? Maybe they've given you mixed signals recently, things got a bit weird or tangled up between the two of you, awkward or distant. They're not really sure kind of where to go from this particular point in time. So it's someone who's almost like needing to let whatever's been kicked up or stirred up settle before they progress towards something more, or to opening up a little more deeply to the situation with you. So I'm going to get a couple messages from kind of that shadowy, fear-based polarity of things, and just to check in and see what are their fears regarding this connection. Okay, and they say, I'm lost, I don't know what to do. So this definitely confirms that energy of somebody who is trying a different approach in this situation than they have in partnerships, trying to restrain themselves, or kind of like hold back on that urge to just sort of rush forward and move too quickly into a situation. It's new territory for them, and so it's almost the idea of like they're floundering a little bit with this, wanting to give you more, but not really sure if it's the right time, or kind of how to move in this new territory with the two of you. If this is someone from the past, it's again this idea that they're lost, they're in kind of a darkness, they're in a heavy period right now, and they don't know what to say, what to do to course correct in this situation, but they're actively watching you at this point in time, trying to look for some sort of an indication, or maybe some sort of spark of inspiration that will clue them in about, this is the time to approach, this is the manner in which to kind of deliver this truth, or some kind of speech, or deliver some kind of olive branch to create a vibration of peace between you. They also say, things moved so fast and I didn't know how to trust my feelings for you. So confirmation right there is someone who may have been a little bit flustered or spooked. This can be what resulted in a no contact situation, someone who ran from their feelings, from the intensity and nature of their feelings, and now they're sitting in the energy of regret about that. If it's somebody that you're currently dealing with, and again, they've kind of pulled back energetically, or they're getting a little quiet, or things got awkward between the two of you, confirmation again of something that has been triggered, and also this mindfulness, this awareness that they have within themselves of a tendency to run, a tendency to be avoidant, some wounds and heartbreak that it feels like they're actively trying to kind of like work their way through by implementing in action in this situation with you a different approach to love and partnership than the method they have used in the past, which has led to kind of these recurring series of heartbreaks. So I'm going to get some guidance for you, and then I'll get some initials. Okay, and we have joy. You are being guided to do more things that make you happy. So this guidance definitely applies to, the situation with the person you're currently dealing with, person from the past. The key here is that you continue to move forward towards your own like sovereignty and contentment. Whatever this person's deal is, whatever their kind of entanglement, whatever that they are working through, the guidance here is to not take this personally. It's nothing that you're doing. You're not coming on too strong. If you were chasing this person at one point in time and they were running from you and you've disconnected from that and kind of refocus the attention on self, the guidance is to continue to do that, to continue to pursue things which bring you joy, find that light and embody that light from within you. And when you operate at that very high frequency, you call into your world and into your reality experiences that resonate with that frequency, or that are doorways or kind of like signposts that can help you to kind of course correct and calibrate in that direction. If this is something where, maybe you are not willing to entertain romantic thoughts for this person again, you've moved on, you've changed, you're two different people at this point in time, that this is something that graciously kind of understanding that it's taking courage if this person approaches you, but really choosing what is in your highest good, regardless of the history that you've had with one another. If it just doesn't feel right, to move forward into a friendship or into something more with them, then maybe just kind of like hearing what they have to say, responding or not responding, just whatever your intuition's telling you at that particular moment, and using it as an opportunity perhaps for some closure for yourself, so that you can turn your sights toward different types of connections in romance in the future. If this is somebody that you are dealing with currently and it's kind of moving at that snail's pace, that molasses kind of energy, and they're taking a while to really open up, or it's kind of a little bit of sort of like the opening and closing of these energies between the two of you, continuing to remain in this very sort of like positive and abundant vibration, trusting that whatever that kind of reflex or mechanism is on their part, that they're in their own journey or their own process of moving beyond their own tendencies. And so continuing to, cultivate that sense that you are worthy and deserving of healthy and reciprocal love just as you are. And as you continue to radiate that confidence, that is the frequency that this individual will sense and will see as kind of a place of safety. And if anything, that will encourage them to kind of step beyond this vibration of fearfulness and lean, when they are ready and in their own time, into that place of trust to potentially, open up more and join you in that frequency of joy, so the two of you can explore what else might develop in this situation. So I'm going to get some initials, and this can be a first, middle, or last name of you or this person, or it could spell something out, just whatever resonates for you. Okay, we've got E, C, A, Y, J, E, N, W, B, K, D, P, V, N, M, C, L, and H. So those are your messages. I hope that they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, or share. If you'd like a personal reading, I offer them through my Etsy shop, and there's a link in the description box of the video for that. I offer a variety of pre-recorded video readings, written readings, and channeled letters. Turnaround time on everything is 5 to 7 days from the time of purchase. I also sell handmade jewelry, dream catchers, and sun catchers if you're interested in checking any of those out as well. And I've launched a second channel here on YouTube, which is called Lady of the Dawn Tarot. There's a link in the description box as well as in the channel section of my page for that. The format over there consists of readings related to topics other than love and romance. So if you are interested in a different kind of variety of readings from me, that is the place to find them. I thank you for your support over there, as well as for your continued support here on this channel. I hope to see you again in another reading. Please take care and be well. Hi, Group 3. You chose the Petrified wood along with the Elephant card. So to start with, to channel these energies of the crystal and the card in terms of this person's hopes and fears about the connection. Petrified wood is obviously a very ancient stone, so it's ancient trees from the primordial forest that after they were felled, after a period of time, they have crystallized, they have become a crystalline substance. So this can tie into a sense of soul recognition, soul connection between you and this individual, that you go way back, to the dawn of time even. This can definitely be like a twin soul or a twin flame connection, and it ties into the idea of the nature and intensity of that, kind of this otherness, the little spooky elements, all of the activations and the awareness and the telepathy and the dreams and the past life visions and all of the unfinished business between the two of you, that it's more than just a deep sense of magnetic yearning towards you, that you feel like home unlike anyone else before has. But with that comes these huge waves of unfinished business between the two of you. Times where your love story was thwarted or couldn't come into being for various reasons, that this is not the first time you've done this dance with one another. And so the fears that are really coming up, they stem from situations in this lifetime and also things from previous lifetimes. So it's the idea of the hope that you can make up for lost time, but also a lot of unconscious triggering kind of energy that it feels like is very overwhelming for this person to wrap their mind around. So it may result in kind of like a hot and cold energy to you. This stone is also associated with ancestors and lineage. So this can definitely tie into kind of like ancestral or generational patterns. There's a fear of repeating these mistakes, or even like a fear of commitment, fear of getting trapped, maybe in a connection in general. If they came from a home or an upbringing where there was a lot of toxicity, there's a fear of kind of the triggering or the back and forth between the two of you, that this can, that this is just sort of being a link in another chain, just yet another generation that has the same kind of story, efforts that this person may have made in other ways in their life to break these generational trends and patterns, and kind of a confusion as far as this connection and these feelings. Do you represent the new way forward, or do you represent kind of regressing back into that same sort of trap that others before them, or they in sort of previous manifestations of themselves in this and other lifetimes had experienced? This elephant energy, this kind of like memory, it again ties into the idea of a lot of these visions that they have had, dreams, recollections, a lot of deja vu that happens in the situation with you, that is it's frightening to them in a sense, and yet there's a hopefulness that the two of you can start to make sense out of all of this, that you can press forward or find your path or the reasoning with one another for having intersected in this lifetime. Kind of a bit of a conundrum that they find themselves in, very drawn towards you, very protective of you. It's a sense of like they remember you, they recognize you, not just as a reflection of themselves, but they recognize you from other lifetimes. It's an immediate sense of like homecoming with this person. A lot of deep familiarity, maybe very quick intimacy that was developed between the two of you on like a spiritual level, on a soul level, on an emotional level. A lot that has been sparked and activated within. A lot of these deeply dormant energies, psychic gifts, latent abilities, all of this really tossed about and brought to the surface, where there's a fear of kind of the intensity and the velocity of what's happening, what's being awoken within them. To where they're very hopeful that the two of you can kind of, if you're still in contact with one another, that you can sort of hold one another's hand through this process of self-discovery. Hope that you will, you will hold on to that place of memory as they are holding on to this place of memory, that despite whatever these challenges are that you face with one another internally or externally, you've been through challenges with one another before, internally or externally, in these other lifetimes that are very kind of like hard to pinpoint, hard to understand, and yet there's a sense of your souls having been called home toward one another. So there's a hopefulness that you can kind of press forward, lean upon one another, help one another, heal one another, grow with one another, empower one another. And yet there's also this fearfulness, about kind of like what they're getting themselves involved in. A deep sense of recognition that in a lot of ways, these feelings and this connection far exceeds what they have known of partnership with others before. That a lot more has been experienced than they were expecting when they first intersected with you, or reached out to you, or connected with you. There's a lot that has really come online very quickly, a lot that is changing within them, and it feels to be something that if you're in like a no contact period with them, it may be due to sort of this overwhelm that they're experiencing, that they don't know how to really talk about what's going on, and that there's a fear that like when they figure this out, when they get their bearings again, when they learn to kind of like navigate with these changes, not just in terms of the emotional body, but it really feels to be things that are activating within, with this kind of this little gemstone here on the crown, like the third eye and crown chakra region. Psychic gifts, downloads that are coming on. We've got this Kundalini fire here in the elephant's trunk. Another confirmation of like twin flame or twin soul energy, that you've activated this person. There's a sense of a lot of this having not been discussed openly. And so you're both kind of feeling around in the dark, very connected at that higher self level, but maybe even like a shared or mutual fear, or an uncertainty, like, am I the only one having conscious inclinations that this is kind of an extraordinary connection? Am I the only one that is experiencing these phenomenon, that has been impacted in quite this way, has been changed in quite this way, has been empowered in quite this way? So there's a hope that the two of you can kind of move beyond whatever this almost like a chrysalis phase is, where there's things that are needing to kind of take place within. You're strengthening, you're empowering, you're coming more into this sovereignty, or into kind of this next version of yourself, kind of fired up by these energies, and then whatever's coming down from those higher frequencies, and how that all relates into some kind of ascension energy. And so there's a hopefulness that on the other side of that, the two of you will be able to come to a deeper understanding of kind of what has happened, what you have both experienced, that you can come to a place of being very open, and kind of like talking about and sort of working through this puzzle with one another, as far as like, who are we? Where did we come from? What has been our journey up to this point in time? Why have we encountered one another? What is our purpose with one another in this lifetime? And how does this kind of forge the path moving forward for ourselves? Or even, this elephant, this big energy, kind of what's our shared mission? What's our purpose for kind of the collective consciousness in general? Something where this person feels to have an awareness that it's bigger than the two of you. It's bigger than just sort of activating or triggering or aggravating some sort of spiritual awakening and kind of an expansion energy. There's these glimmers and kind of these glimpses of, and a sense of that there's something more meaningful to this than merely personal transformation, but it starts with that first and foremost, and then kind of branches off into something that's more kind of cohesive between the two of you. So it feels like for a lot of you, this may be somebody who's still kind of currently in your life, and there's a lot that has been unspoken. It may be times where you sort of are like moving toward one another and propelled in separate directions, almost like the intensity builds, things happen, you're both kind of stunned and overwhelmed by a lot of synchronicities, deja vu, signs that you're getting, and there's a need to kind of like go to your separate corners and process that. But there's this hope that you can, be more consistent with this energy with one another. You can learn to master this process individually and with one another. You can crystallize into some sort of form, a different kind of outcome from maybe the times where your story with one another didn't work out advantageously in the past. That this time around, it can be different results, that you can heal a lot of these wounds, for each other and within one another. And also a hopefulness of kind of writing a different sort sort of future for yourselves, from what is kind of coming up in these dreams and visions, or whatever has been sort of the difficulty or the dissonance between you at this point in time. This can also be somebody, though, that, you know, you're in a no contact situation with, kind of like a runner chaser dynamic to a certain extent, where again there's this energy of each of you, there's a hope that kind of this separation is in fact a blessing, and that the two of you can grow very individually in order to come back together, stronger within yourselves in order to strengthen the partnership. There's also a fear here of outgrowing one another, and so that fear can definitely tie into someone you're dealing with, or somebody you're in no contact with that you're in separation from. So someone who might be a bit sort of stubborn or hesitant, or sort of pushing and resisting this energy of change, because as much as they're being compelled into a different version of themselves, there's a part of them that is also feeling, I don't want to outgrow you. I don't want to outgrow this potential. I don't want to outgrow that spark of recognition, that mystery, which is so compelling and overwhelming, because I'm not sure if kind of the version of me that I'm being called to step into will resonate with the version of you that you're being called to step into. So a lot of growth energy here, a lot of fear as well about, again, those nature of like the psychic gifts, spiritual gifts, perceptions of spirituality, just some kind of path, that is bringing up a lot for this person, confronting a lot of fears, needing to confront that, trying to charge forth through that, trying to really break a lot of patterns and tendencies and chains within themselves, and within their life in conjunction to this situation, but then also very fearful of sort of what exists on the other side of that change. Who will they become, or what will they find? So I'm going to get some tarot and oracle cards to dive a little bit deeper into this, their hopes and fears about you and the connection. Okay, so we have the Four of Cups, which is water energy, Pisces, Cancer, and Scorpio. The Devil, which is Capricorn. Ten of Pentacles, which is earth energy, Capricorn, Taurus, and Virgo. Seven of Swords, which is air energy, Aquarius, Gemini, and Libra. Never-ending story. And deep knowing. Yeah, so there is kind of this wishy-washy energy here with this Four of Cups. It's kind of like being very drawn to change and very fearful of leaving a version of themselves or a status quo behind. There's a hopefulness that the two of you can rise beyond whatever sort of lukewarm energy has developed between the two of you up to this point in time. Or almost like this hope that you in some way will save them or rescue them, it feels like, from the life that they are living. They may have not even realized just how bored they were in their existence, until there was almost this kind of splash of something new, this collision with you, this kind of energy of the two of you at the soul level calling out to one another. And despite these very different paths, you've managed to intersect with one another in this particular lifetime. And so there's a fear to kind of change and grow and evolve, because there's a sense of almost like, what's the guarantee that what I find or what I become, and this feels to be very individual energy, not related to kind of like what will develop between the two of us. Is the juice going to be worth the squeeze? Is it going to be worth what I have to give up in order to move in the direction of this connection? But this feels like personal growth and development that has been really sparked or instigated by these energies between the two of you, that is, they're being called to like step out of a version of themselves, to really face fears and move in the direction of things that are for their highest good, for their better potential, healthier habits, healthier connections. This can be like toxic belief systems, toxic environments, toxic relationships that they are in. There may even be like third party energies on one or both sides in this situation, and a call to press forth past all of that, which there's a hopefulness that on the other side of whatever needs to change within themselves as a result of changing their environment, that it'll be worth kind of the comfort or the ease or the familiarity of what is given up in that process of coming more into a sense of deeper alignment with kind of this call to action within. Also the sense of kind of like if you've resonated with one another at a particular vibration, you've met at a particular point in time, there's been that spark, there's been that interaction, there's that fearfulness of kind of like, if I face this fear and let this particular vibration of me go and I step into more of this abundance, this is something where, you know, you're going to run away. There's a fearfulness of the tables being turned if this person has run from this connection. And it's almost something where there's a desire to pursue, but then a fear of kind of like, you're going to outpace them. You're going to outgrow them in a sense. You're not going to like what you see on the other side of them stepping into a healthier or higher vibration within themselves. And yet there's a hopefulness that the two of you can kind of vacate the limitations of how you've been moving through the world, how you've perceived love and partnership, maybe a need to kind of redefine your domestic situations, what you're doing for a living, how you're moving through the world, what that world in reality looks like, that there's a hope that you can come to some kind of meeting of the mind, sort of a shared goal and vision, that on the other side of becoming almost the yin to one's own yang, that you can break free of maybe this tendency or pattern, this never-ending story energy here, of things and places where you've sort of settled, outdated stories, outdated versions of yourselves. This ties in an idea of the past life energy, these kind of like waves of fears and all this triggering over times where your story didn't work out in the past. All of those kind of like unhealed disappointments, which have become kind of a Goliath, energetically speaking, within the two of you, that you're very drawn toward one another, and yet there's this very visceral, almost like a primal fear, a very ancient fear, you know, within the two of you, energetically and for reasons that defy logic and explanation. And so there's a hope that the two of you can kind of find these answers within, or kind of like grow into versions of yourselves that are able to transcend this, that you can heal yourselves on multiple levels, heal the aspects of this connection in a very broad sense, and move towards something that's like a new cycle, a new journey, a new chapter. So there's also a hopefulness, you know, of somebody you may be in no contact with, that when they come back around, you know, that you will choose to not kind of hold them accountable or almost shut them out, shut the door automatically because of the particular vibration or the way they responded, the way they almost ran from you in the past or rejected you in some manner. That you'll be willing to recognize the changes that they have endured and that they have endeavored within themselves, and that it will help to kind of free your mind from any sort of like limiting impressions you had, any kind of like trust issue. They're very cognizant of that. Trust may be a big factor here. You know, you may have had a momentum you were building with one another, and then all of a sudden the bottom dropped out, and so there's an understanding, a deep knowing, that it's sort of, I'm hearing it's going to take a miracle, or it's going to take a lot. It's going to take that full delivery in order to really prove that they have vanquished a part of themselves and are willing to press forward with you in more consistency than was the case in the past. There's a fear here of almost too little too late, or kind of like trapped in these cycles, that it's just going to forever be a situation trapped in time, that might be their kind of deep knowing is sort of left with that heaviness. That's the karma and the regret of kind of this rare once in a lifetime connection, and decisions that they made to kind of choose the easy route or the comfortable route, or you know, stay in the energy of being very stuck and unwilling to grow and change, that by the time they figure this out or kind of make a lot of progress, that you will have moved beyond them. You will have come into alignment with somebody else. Like if it's a twin flame dynamic, fear that you will, that your twin soul will find you, and that the two of you will move on with your life in another direction, or some other kind of like high level soulmate. It's a sense of like competition here. this understanding that they have with kind of, it's like a familial energy with the elephant and this petrified wood, that you know, as intense as the nature of your connection is with one another, that there are other intense, high level and ancient soul knowings that you have with other individuals. Some of these people gravitating towards you, others of them already in your life, you know, or on the way to you. And it's a sense, it's this deep, almost instinctual knowing that there's a timetable to this. There's an expiration date to this. This isn't just an open-ended forever and ever kind of contract that they need to do something, to act and to change, or they will lose that opportunity in this lifetime. It will cut short this potential, and that it's something where there's a fear that they may not get that opportunity again in this life or in other lifetimes. So it feels to be somebody that's kind of like pressed between these two different polarities of sort of like this motivation and this hopefulness that they can get things right, that they can change and balance and bring together this knowingness within, that they have something to present you with, a hopefulness that the two of you can come into this alignment and move forward into this deeper understanding of the nature of your journey with one another, and kind of the bigger purpose for the two of you actualizing that moving forward. And also a fear that, you know, time's running out with this little hourglass here on the never-ending story, and that kind of a window of opportunity is quickly evaporating, a fear for many that it already has closed, and that they are just sort of, they're going to have to just sit there and kind of live in this stagnation, or with this conscious recognition of they could have had something so much more, and now they have to watch this be somebody else's blessing, somebody else's you know, opportunity, that it's kind of a missed opportunity that won't have the ability to be course corrected. So big energies here of kind of a hopefulness that you can build a forever with one another that is mutually satisfying, that is, you know, fulfills all of your needs on many different levels, that you can tap into and really make good on kind of these larger spiritual implications of the connection, but also this fear that they won't figure it out in time. They won't act quickly enough, or kind of like, even if they change, that they'll grow in another direction. So a bit of codependency, kind of like clinging, or almost, it feels like, whether you're dealing with this person now, or it's kind of like a no contact situation, this may be something that as you're attempting to change and grow and evolve, you feel them almost like clinging or trying to anchor you, or drag you back down in a certain way to a particular stagnancy where they were comfortable at, the vibration they may still be operating at. You know, kind of this self-deception, this lower vibration devil kind of energy. And so they're very resistant and very fearful of being almost left behind. And so it's a fear of kind of when they get their act together, if they choose to get that together, you know, will you still be there? Will you still be receptive, open, and available? Or if they get up and start doing these changes, you know, is it something where their growth is going to take them in a different direction, and at the expense and loss of kind of even the lower level vibrations of how the two of you connect with and sort of relate with one another at this point in time. So I'm going to get some higher self messages from this person, and this deck has both light and shadow messages. So I thought that would be good to get some words related to kind of their hopes for this connection, and also some words related to their fears about this connection. Okay. They say, I love you so much, but I keep running from you. I don't understand why I do this. So that confirms these big waves of triggered fears, things that go far beyond But in addition to heartbreaks and kind of like shadows from this lifetime, there's a lot of past life energy here. There's kind of like, it's outside of the realm of this person's ability to understand, very outside of the box for them. This may be somebody who's a very practical person. Spirituality is not their second language. It's all new territory for them. So they're experiencing the sensation of that, but they don't quite have the words to put to those feelings or to describe that. So it's this intense kind of push-pull dynamic. They're very drawn to you and at the same time very triggered and fearful about this connection. They also say, I can't take being away from you any longer. So another confirmation there of as much as they may run and try to kind of silence themselves, silence this connection, detach or kind of extinguish the feelings for you, they keep being brought back around like a boomerang, like a rubber band snapping back into place. The further they pull, the more deeply they collide back into the reality. That there's a deeper meaning and purpose behind this, that what has been awoken within them, emotionally speaking, energetically speaking, psychically speaking, spiritually speaking, that this is beyond the ordinary. It's beyond what they have known and experienced of love and partnerships and even life in general, up to this point in time. And so as much as they run and try to like create some distance, go out into that borderland of being able to perceive you and kind of turning their back directly on the connection, sinking down into those dark and lower vibrational, those toxic energies, whatever that environment is for them internally or externally or some combination of that, they still are drawn back, like magnetized back into your orbit, pulled out of this personal darkness by your light, which feels to be something, it's an impact nobody has had upon them up to this point in time. And it's something that they're in a process of struggling with, and a lot of pressure to kind of like figure this out, and a fear that by the time they figure it out, it's going to be too little too late. And they also say, I never expected to fall in love with you so quickly. So this ties into the idea of a lot of activations, a lot that they may even just be struggling to define or very confused, and kind of all the only word that they can find for it is love, but it feels to go so much deeper than that. It may be very perplexing for them because this feels almost like instant spark, instant awakening, so much changing, this whole kind of like tidal wave of all of these energies, these kind of like past life fears, these past life desires, all of that kind of blended into one, that may have really caused them to become very kind of like nervous or afraid of these energies, especially with how quickly this came on for them. And the fact that whatever they are trying, there's no way to kind of shut this energy off from within themselves. So it's something that it fills them with a sense of like dread and alarm, but at the same time, they're very curious about this, and kind of they keep being drawn back to kind of these bigger implications and sort of like wanting to solve the mystery. They feel better when they are closer to the light of this connection, when they are opening their mind to connecting with you, to accepting and surrendering to this. But then it's almost like the intensity of it, the fear kicks in, that Goliath rears its head, and then they're often running again back into kind of that borderland, back into that distance. It's almost like they're needing to experience the coldness of disconnect from you in order to be able to experience the warmth and homecoming of that kind of cycling back around. And they also say, I am secretly obsessed with you. So that's that devil energy, that obsession. And it's something that they may be really trying to put the brakes on, as far as, especially if this is somebody that has had this major awakening, these deep feelings that rose up very quickly for them. A sense of that logically it doesn't really add up, why they are so fixated, obsessed, and just kind of curious and drawn back, wanting to warm themselves by the light of this dynamic, having all these exchanges with you, all this telepathy, all these dreams, all these visions, all this empathic and kind of like spiritual knowingness, all these different doors of possibility, rabbit holes that they are now going down, ways in which their perceptions are being expanded, their gifts are being expanded, their kind of perception of themselves in life is being expanded. It's like they can't get enough of this. They want to learn more, but then they reach these places, internally or externally, where fear almost like pivots them back into that status quo, and they're trying to close their eyes, shut it all out, erase everything that they've learned, everything that they know. So it's almost like these glimpses of lucidity and this deep knowing, followed by this other polarity of kind of resistance, and an unwillingness to look at this connection. So sort of like a push-pull dynamic within this person that mirrors in a lot of ways energetically what you're experiencing. If you're at a distance from one another, you're feeling this, you're feeling the effects of this. And if you're dealing with them in real time, kind of that hot and cold energy, it's due to this internal struggle within, very compelled in your direction, and then at a certain point where they become almost self-conscious and try to like pull themselves back. So let's take a look and see what some of these shadowy energies, those more fear-based energies, what are the words surrounding that in their view or estimate of you and the connection. Okay, and they say, I get scared if I'm being honest with you. So that is that devil energy right there. You know, it's the more that they open up, even just energetically, to surrendering to this, to letting themselves really feel the flow and the current between the two of you that is powerful. It's next level. It's ancient. It's otherworldly. It's like an unstoppable force in and of itself that is changing so much for them vibrationally, in terms of their perception, their perspective, worldly matters, spiritual matters, emotional matters, psychic matters. All of these things are just churning, and things are kind of falling apart, only to have other aspects kind of rise up and take the place of how they were viewing the world or themselves or you or love and partnership. Just all these really big energies. You know, that there's an urge to sort of open up to this, to explore this, to discuss these things openly with you, to press forward, to charge forward together, hand in hand, energetically or literally, through all of this confusion and this storminess. A lot of fear that they're not letting you know about. And it almost feels like when they sink into that fear, pride is a big one of these kind of like lower vibrational energies. They don't want to admit that. They don't want to openly kind of discuss these energies for fear that it gives life to these things. It breathes life into something that they don't understand yet. They don't have a grasp on. They're still in a lot of ways pursuing this connection, or holding the energies of this connection from something that can be logically defined, that fits in a neat little package. But in many ways, although it has the potential to become that in a physical sense, there are all these other kind of extraordinary components that they're really wrestling with, kind of coming to terms with, coming to grips with within themselves, and then how to kind of broach all of that and sort of like find that happy medium with you as well. And they also say, I feel so guilty about my actions and what I said to you. So this can definitely be somebody that ghosted, cut things off, was very brisk, or sort of like leaned into toxicity in an effort to self-sabotage. Guilt and regret as far as any sort of underhanded, undermining things, kind of that sneakiness of the Seven of Swords and the devil energy, to really sort of pull apart this connection at the seams, energetically or directly. It all stemmed from a place of fear within themselves, and sort of in the aftermath of that, or a tendency within them, especially if it's somebody you're dealing with currently, or it's kind of hot and cold. It's the momentum builds, and then there's walls and blocks that are put up, to where it may create a lot of confusing energy for you. They hold a lot of regret about that. There's a desire to kind of get onto the same page with you, to open up and express these things, to be very honest about, I'm very overwhelmed about this. I don't know what I'm feeling. I don't know what this is. I don't know what we do about this, where we go from here. And yet there's an element within themselves that's very kind of fearful of opening that door, of kind of empowering that. That's almost a Goliath in and of itself, the possibility and potential of kind of, if I feel so intensely, dealing with this person face to face on this level and the way we are at now, or even from afar, like if I'm opening my mind to this and all of these intense things are happening energetically, what happens if we ground this down into like 10 of Pentacles, a happily ever after in the material sense, like a fear of what will become of them, what will the world that they have known it as, what will that be like? Will they be able to keep up? Is this something that will overwhelm them, overtake them? A powerlessness they feel over the intensity and nature and velocity of these big spiritual energies between the two of you. Definitely a group here, that this is beyond just sort of like somebody with kind of mundane emotions, deep and intense feelings. This is definitely like, twin flame, twin soul type energies right here. This is next level energy. They're equating this with something that on many levels and in many ways, they've never experienced anything like this. Not just in terms of the feelings for you, but in terms of all the changes which have unfolded after that point of the two of you intersecting with one another. It's like everything is different, and they're moving through these different kind of poles and polarities of sort of like trusting that, leaning into that, allowing themselves to be transformed, and then like needing a breather from all of that, becoming very overwhelmed, sinking back into that fearfulness. And then there's also kind of part of them that's fretting and pressuring them to just lean into this growth process out of fear of maybe not coming to a place within themselves where the two of you can kind of move forward with one another, and a fear also that they will just be left with a lot of these unanswered questions as they have chosen to pursue the path of fear, and are a little bit resistant to, or a lot resistant for some of you, to making these changes, or to really kind of trusting in the nature of what's happening. So I'm going to get some guidance for you, and then I will get some initials. Okay, and we've got healing. Archangel Raphael is assisting you in healing your mind, body, and spirit. So this is very beautiful energy, this guidance here that is encouraging you to continue along your path of personal healing, growth, development, and ascension. As you raise your vibration, it makes this frequency available to this other person. When you come back together with one another, even as much as there are triggering energies, and during the blissful and beautiful times that you have before maybe these periods of having to pivot away from one another, there is a healing energy that is exchanged. It's like you are each gathering little bits and pieces along your separate journeys, along your parallel paths, so that when you touch base with one another again, you're exchanging those codes and those frequencies and vibrations, to where on the outside it may look like it's a lot of chaos, it's a lot that's churning, it's a lot of uncertainty. It may feel that you're doing a lot of this heavy lifting on your own, but it feels to be something that kind of the balance shifts within this situation. And so times where you're feeling that you're very alone on this sort of like healing path, or questioning, has this person just been put in my life in order to trigger me to step more deeply into my own healing in areas? The answer is kind of like yes and yes. You're meant to really trigger one another, trigger and activate those self-healing mechanisms within, or that interest or that attention on redirecting the focus from outcomes, and trying to control the situation and anticipate what's happening, giving away so much power to the external focus on what's that person doing on their part of the journey. And it's really a task to kind of like self-direct these energies. Become that change you are wanting to experience in this situation, within yourself, within your life in general. And then also the work you're doing within yourself helps to open up or show a pathway to this other person, and vice versa. When and where they choose to kind of confront some darkness or limitations within, and they have, these milestones and these victories, it sends a frequency to you that kind of nudges or shows you a way through whatever that difficulty of a similar capacity or vibration is within your own existence. You're almost kind of like in tandem, working your way up these very individual mountains of challenge within yourselves and within your life. So doing your best to kind of like pick up the pieces, seeing the triggers and kind of the upsets in the situation as doorways to where you can really find and create medicine out of this pain, out of these situations. How can you make these circumstances lead you to more of a place of becoming better within rather than embittered by these circumstances? And it's something where, opening to that, detaching from outcomes, recognizing, kind of seeing the bigger picture here, that even in terms of these past life kind of wounds that are really coming up and are triggering a lot of this sort of like running energy from one another. You each can consciously do your part in various ways. Perhaps you more specifically at this point in time as somebody who's watching a reading about energies like this, if you're resonating with this group, with this pile, the work that you're doing to actively and consciously go in and set that intention to heal that dissonance, not just within your connection, but in you as an individual and how you've carried these wounds across lifetimes. It sends out a ripple effect that kind of, it changes the way in which the two of you are then able to interact with one another vibrationally, and over time it has the potential to change the nature of your interactions with one another face to face. So I'm going to get some initials, and this can be a first, middle, or last name of you or this person, or it could spell something out, just whatever resonates for you. Okay, we've got A, F, S, V, Y, W, G, A, L, K, N, O, E, P, W, B, M, and H. So those are your messages. I hope that they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, or share. If you'd like a personal reading, I offer them through my Etsy shop, and there's a link in the description box of the video for that. I offer a variety of pre-recorded video readings, written readings, and channeled letters. Turnaround time on everything is 5 to 7 days from the time of purchase. I also sell handmade jewelry, dream catchers, and sun catchers if you're interested in checking any of those out as well. And I've launched a second channel here on YouTube, which is called Lady of the Dawn Tarot. There's a link in the description box as well as in the channel section of my page for that. The format over there consists of readings related to topics other than love and romance. So if a little bit of a different variety of reading from me interests you, that is the place to find them. I thank you for your support over there as well as for your continued support here on this channel. I hope to see you again in another reading. Please take care and be well.